Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSet Network. Friend, as you know, we have organized a series of lectures on financial statement 2011 and 12. But before we discuss the financial statement, we will try to know what is the meaning of budget and what are the making of the budgets and basic premises involved with it. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in studio Dr. A.C. Sharma. He is a renowned academician and administrator and has been principal for many years in Ramlal Anand College, Delhi University. And his interest and expertise in development economics and a number of publications has published in national journals. So I think his knowledge and experience will help us to understand the budget in a new perspective. So on your behalf, I welcome Dr. Sharma for EduSet lecture. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Amrinder. You see, before I take up the issue of budget 2011 as it has been presented to the Indian Parliament by the Honorable Finance Minister of this country, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, I would like to take you back to the basics of the budgets. See, budget, as we know or as everyone knows, budget is a statement of revenue and expenditure by the government during a given period of time, and in that sense it becomes a part of the government fiscal policy to achieve its overall objectives of macroeconomic policy. Now, what are the major, main, primary motives of macroeconomic policy of any government? The primary objective of any macroeconomic policy is to have good jobs, to have good real incomes, to have a low inflation, that is the level of prices, and to have low unemployment in the economic system. This overall objective can be summed up in one sentence, that the objective of the macroeconomic policy is to have a stable economy. Now, if an economy has a good economic growth, if it has a good number of jobs, if it has a very low level of prices, now this type of economy is bound to be stable. And this is the objective which every government has before it. Now, the fiscal policy in the form of budget, the fiscal policy in the form of budget is devised to achieve these objectives. Now, having said that, I just want to introduce you to the other concepts which are associated with budget making. Now, as I told you right in the beginning, that budgets are a statement of revenue and expenditure. The government draws its revenue from various sources, and the major sources of revenue for the government are its taxation policy. So they are either the revenues arising out of tax. Now these taxes are individual income tax, they are corporate income taxes, and there are other sources of income which are a part of the revenue expenditure. And this revenue which the government drives, this revenue has to be spent on various programs which the government draws up with the sole objective of moving towards achieving the objectives, the primary objectives of the macroeconomic policy. Now, budgets, there are different types of budgets. Budgets could be surplus. Whenever there is the difference between revenue and expenditure is positive, that would be a situation where budget is surplus. If the difference between the revenue and expenditure is negative, which means that revenue is less as compared to the expenditure, then in that case this would be a deficit budget. So, but in case you have a situation where both the revenue as well as the expenditure, they are equal to each other, then this is a situation of balanced budget. If you look into historically, not only the Indian situation, but the situation in other parts of the world also, there have been instances where countries had surplus budgets, countries had deficit budgets, but balanced budget concept is, after the post Second World War, the concept of balanced budget has not been seen around in the world. Now, from here, with this understanding, and I'll again re-emphasize that budgetary policy or the fiscal policy is a tool which is used by the governments to achieve its overall objective of macroeconomic policy. Now, with this background, if you now start looking at what had happened to 2011 budget, which was presented to the Indian Parliament on 28th February 2011, then let us have a look at that what is that which they have done and what are the objectives which they have laid down, and whether the tools which have been used, the programs which have been adopted, the tax policy which they have adopted, whether they would be converging or they would be leading this country to the achievement of those objectives. Now, what are the objectives? Objectives are high growth, low unemployment, and low inflation. These are the three objectives around which the budget has been formulated. Now, as far as the growth is concerned, in the context of growth, the basic premise is that whether you want to achieve a higher rates of growth, but these growth should be A, inclusive growth, equitable growth, and this growth should be a sustained growth. Sustained means that this growth you can continue to achieve for over a longer period of time. It should not be like this, that this year you have 9% and next year you come down to 4% or 5%. Sustained high growth rate means that if in the last year you were at 8.5%, that is during the year 2010-11, if during that fiscal year your rate of growth was 8.5%, then during the coming year, that is the year 2011 and 2012, the rate of growth must be slightly, maybe it should be increasing, but it should not be falling dramatically from 8.5% to 4% or 5%. Sustained growth means the growth which is sustained over a period of time, is a long-term trend. It should be inclusive growth, which means that the participants in the growth process should be all, and should not be, the participant in growth should not be limited to only few. The growth should be equitable, which means that it must achieve the objective of equity also. So, the high rates of growth and these growth patterns should be inclusive growth, it should be equitable growth, it should be sustained growth. That is the objective which the Government of India has laid before itself. Now, to this they want the rate of unemployment, or the rate of employment should be not very high, or a rate of unemployment which is not acceptable. Every society needs, as every one of us knows, what are the basic requirements. The requirements are food, shelter, and food, shelter, these are the basic requirements which every society has to fulfill for all its inhabitants. So, unless that is done, and that is always possible if everyone is participating in the production process. Only then, if you are participating in the production process, you would be earning some money and you would be employed also. And this should not be at the cost of a very high rates of inflation. Inflation has to be at the minimum or at a low level, a inflation rate which is acceptable. Now, this is the basic framework in which the budgetary policy has been enunciated by the Finance Minister of this country on the 28th of February 2011. Now, this is one part of the, and here most of the proposals which have been drawn up, by the Finance Minister, they have been drawn up using one premise, and that premise has been that the year gone by, that is the year 2010-11, has produced 8.5% rate of growth. That is the basis which has been taken to draw up the proposals. And for the year 2011 and 12, the underlying idea is that India must achieve or must obtain a rate of growth which is 9%. Now, if this rate of growth is to be achieved, then naturally the government has to devise its sectoral allocation policy, which means that it has to identify various programs of action which will enable the government to attain a level of economic growth which is 9%. Now, it is a different matter. That between the day when you are planning and the day you want to achieve your end product, there is a whole range of time span which has to be used for implementation. Now, during the course of implementation of a policy design, some untoward incident can take place. Incidents or situations which are external to the system. Look at what happened in Japan only few days back. A flourishing society, of course, is an aging society, but flourishing otherwise. No dearth of electricity. Whatever they had planned, they were achieving. One stroke of nature has created a situation where a good part of Japanese society is without electricity. Now, if they do not have power, now most of the production activities which are using power as an energy, they would come to a standstill. Production will fall. This will lead to unemployment. So, is always, see, the stability factor, although it is projected, but it is always possible that something may happen and we may run into a problem. Go back to what happened in 2008. American economy was flourishing. Incomes were rising. Consumption was rising. Everyone was happy. All of a sudden, what happened? And they are now saddled with the problem of a rate of unemployment which is 9% plus. Now, 9% plus rate of unemployment, no society can sustain. Here, if you recall what happened during the Great Depression, the level of unemployment, the moment you have that level of unemployment, that creates chaotic situations in the society. So, stability, yes, theoretically, yes, but these are always factors which need to be kept in mind so that you are always on your toes, so that you are always on to your alert. Now, so after having seen that fiscal policy which is drawn up and based on its budgetary parameters, parameters of revenue and expenditure, and the premise which the Government of India has used in formulating its plan. Now, this is one, that the growth, equitable growth, sustainable growth, and then the inclusive growth. This is the premise on which the budget has been formulated to achieve this. And at a very low rate of inflation. Inflation has to be kept in mind. Now, at this juncture, I want to expose you to the emerging situation on inflation, not only in this country, but in the world as a whole. Now, world is suffering from very, if you divide the total world into three different components, parts. One is the developed countries, then you have the emerging countries, then you have the underdeveloped countries. Inflation is a problem which is afflicting almost all countries of the world. It is not only particular to the Indian situation. And if you go into the breakup, the sources of this particular rates of price increases, you will find that the commodity prices are the major contributors to the price rises. Now, commodity prices, which includes food prices. Now, in this country also, we are also faced with a very peculiar situation, a very serious, severe situation on the food front also. Our food prices are not controllable. So, which means that if the budgetary allocations are to be devised, then the budgetary allocations must take into account the situation which is prevailing in the agriculture sector. The point is, has our finance minister addressed these problems? If you look into his budgetary statement and the allocations which he has made for the agriculture sector, then you will discover that pulses and oil has been given a importance of primary importance as far as the allocations are concerned. So, our budgetary policy has been devised to take into account the rising food prices, not only the world over but our food prices also, and it has been decided that something must be done to the agriculture sector. And precisely pulses and oils have been taken up by the finance minister to enhance budgetary allocation. Now, I will take you to another dimension of this. The dimension is that if you have to have a growth of 8 to 9% or maybe 10%, and then also you have added 2-3 more components of growth, that is, growth should be sustainable, perfectly all right. Growth should be inclusive and equitable, which means that there is not an automatic trickling down effect of this growth mechanism. So, to ensure that this growth does not go only to the rich, the other sections of the society are also getting something. So, therefore, allocation to the social sector becomes of paramount importance. What we have done? Have we done something in that area? The answer is yes. Now, what is that? Yes. Now, what is this social sector? The social sector consists of education, health, the gender, that is women in this country, children in this country, the other marginalized section of the society. Now, which are the marginalized section of the society? Every one of us know that the marginalized sections are scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, minorities, other backward caste, minorities. Have we taken their needs into account, or we have not? The answer is yes. If you look into the allocations, you will discover that from 2010 to 2011 and the coming year, that is the budget proposals for 11-12, there is an enhancement of budgetary allocations to the extent of as much as about 17% in the social sector. Agriculture sector has been given allocation, given place of prominence. Now, from where this money will come? The money has to come from its revenues. Now, what are the sources of revenue? So, the sources of revenue for the government is the tax revenue and its other earnings. Now, tax revenue, taxes are collected from individuals in the form of income tax. Taxes are also collected from corporate in the form of corporate taxes. These are part of the direct taxes. Then there are indirect taxes. Excise duties, custom duties, this duty, sale tax, this tax, value added tax. So all these are a part of the revenue earning sources. Now, as I told you right in the beginning that budget could be surplus, budget could be deficit, budget could be balanced. Historically, also I told you that there have been instances where we had, not in this country had all through a deficit budget. There is a reason for that. There is a reason for that. Because our is a economy, today it is growing at 9%. A decade back it was growing only at 4 to 5%. Then if you go a decade back, it was growing only at the 3 to 4%, the so-called Hindu rate of growth. So it is only now that we are now categorized along with few other countries as emerging countries. We are a part of what we call BRIC countries. We are emerging countries. The growth is shifting from developed countries to these emerging countries. If you look into the composition of the world growth, you will find that these countries' contribution is now increasing and leading to the increases in the world growth rate. Now, this particular, the point which I raised was that do we have sufficient revenues to meet these expenditures which we have set before ourselves? The answer is that we are still a deficit country. We are a deficit, our budgets are always deficit. And that deficit we generally try to make up through not only it is a practice the world over, that these deficits are to be made up by borrowing from the public, which we in economics call public debt. But what we have done in order to, there is another assumption that if we are growing at the rate of 9%, then naturally this will be contributing to the tax revenue also. The tax revenue would also increase. We have also seen in this country the problem of tax evasion. And the general usual answer had been that at such high rates of taxation, there is a tendency to avoid taxes, because no one would like to part with the hard earned money to be paid back in the form of taxes. Now it is a different matter that such kind of situations, they have led to another problem in not only in this country, but we are suffering very severely on the question of black money. There is a tremendous growth of black money during the last 3 to 4 decades after independence. We are suffering from that. It is perpetuating. We are not finding any solution to that. So the best solution which we can think of is, we tried out some time back, that was general amnesty. That is, all individuals in this country who were holding black money, they were given an opportunity to come out. We will not penalize you. We will not do this. We will not do that. Please come out and make it into a white money. But that experience also shows that that was only a short-term gimmick that could give only a solution maybe for a while, but that is no solution. A solution has to be found from within the system. Now, has this budget looked into any of these questions? The only thing which they have done is that they are trying to reduce the tax GDP ratio. Our tax GDP ratio has come down drastically. The underlying idea is that if we reduce the rates of taxation, it is possible that the tendency to avoid paying taxes is curbed. We only hope that this is done. We have not done much on certain other areas which are of a concern. If you remember, when the 2G scam was debated in the public domain, simultaneously that was a time when the question of our money stashed in foreign banks also came out. That is also a money which has been earned here, maybe through this mean or that mean, and it has been stashed in foreign banks. Have we done anything? There is a popular perception that, which is not it is a statement which is not academic in nature, that if this country succeeds in bringing back this money, Indians need not pay even a single paisa in the form of taxes, at least for 1 year. See, the amount of money in this form is not available with us. So, but we have moved in that direction, and our direction in which we have moved, we have tried to bring down the rate of, that is the tax GDP ratio, we have tried to bring it down from 12% to 10%. So overall, this is a budget which is revenue neutral budget, that is the rate of taxation is not very high. It is a budget which is geared towards achieving 9% rate of growth. It is a budget which is geared towards containing the rate of rise in prices also. Now, this is in nutshell the structure of the budget 2011, with one more addition which I want to make. If you have followed developments on the Indian economy front, then you would agree with me that when this financial crisis erupted in the year 2008, bank after bank they were liquidated, financial institution after financial institution were liquidated. In this country, in spite of the fact that we are integrated with the world economy, this country did not experience any shock of that kind. Why? The answer is that we have regulated our financial sector and monitored. So therefore, we did not experience any that kind. But there was some impact in certain specific areas of manufacturing. But we were in a position to cope up with that situation by injecting credit, injecting money. That was, we were following an expansionary budgetary policy or expansionary monetary policy. That is, we were trying to stimulate our economy as other countries in the world, they were also. Now, what would be the result if you are spending more than? The result would be that it will add up to the budget deficit. Now, if we continue with the budget deficit year after year, this deficit will keep on adding to the public debt. Which is a worrisome area. That there is a sustainable level of debt also. And if you go beyond that sustainable level of debt, you are bound to enter into an unstable regime, which is against the macroeconomic objectives. So, which means what? Which means that after having stimulated, added to deficit in this country, budgets, we must move towards consolidation. We must move towards bringing down deficit so that we do not enter into a unsustainable debt. What is the situation on that front? The situation on that front is that we are moving towards fiscal consolidation. Our deficit for this year, as we have planned, is to bring down from 5.1%, which was in the year 2010-11, to 4.6%. So, as far as the budget for the year 2011 is concerned, I am trying to, and I am trying to put across also, I am seeing quite a good positives in this budget. Now, as far as the negatives are concerned, I am of the view that negatives are there. And the negatives of, as I told you, the black money, the unaccounted money, which is stashed in the foreign banks. These are the negatives. We are not moving in that direction. Rather than looking into these questions and looking into the loopholes, we are moving towards signing agreements on avoidance of double taxation agreements. It's not very healthy unless you take wholesome action to bring back the such kind of money which is already stashed in the foreign banks. So there are negatives also. So I'll again, if you want me to summarize the budget 2011, so 2011 budget has been devised. All proposals have been devised using 8.5% rate of growth for the year 2010-11, and proposals have been directed to achieve 9% rate of growth. Further, the objectives which have been laid down are that this growth must be sustainable, it should be a sustained growth, it should be an equitable growth, it should be inclusive growth, and must be obtained at a very low level of prices. To achieve these, we have geared our attention to the various programs which we have adopted in the form of expenditure program, the programs on which we have to spend money. We have tried to go into the reduction of tax GDP ratio with the specific objective that this will help tax compliance, and also this will help tax administration. That is another objective which has been laid down. On the price front, although there is a criticism all around, but that criticism can be silenced by only making one statement, that it is always not possible to satisfy everyone. Everyone has his or her way of looking at things. Whether we agree with that or we do not agree with that, that does not take away the positiveness of the proposals which have been contained in this budget. Now, with this, I want to put a full stop, and I want you to raise any questions if you have, so that I have an opportunity to answer.
As you said, there are many nitty-gritties of making of budgets, but while making a budget, the focus sometimes we find at one side of the society, at another side of the society, it varies. So, what could be a balance? What could be the ideal sort of the situation?
You see, it's very difficult to answer this question, because this is a question which has a complexities. It is a complex question. But I can answer in one, as I said earlier also, that it is difficult to satisfy everyone. But once you have laid down a policy setup, that you want to grow as much as you can grow, and that growth should be inclusive growth, that growth should be an equitable growth, and also we must achieve this growth at a very low level of prices. Now, this is the objective, which objective has to be attained.
Yeah, focus is here. You are talking about the growth,
Ah.
but the people want development.
No,
There is a
you see, the difference between growth and development lies only in that there are certain indices. Growth all by itself does not lead to development.
Yeah, growth is a number change.
Growth is a number change.
Yes.
But development means that there is a change in the social structure.
Yeah, that is what.
That is okay. So this is what during the course of my lecture I was trying to tell you, that in order to ensure that this growth percolates to not majority, but to all. That is your question. That the growth must percolate to all.
All yours, it should bring a structural change where everyone have the
Now,
opportunity to play.
how do you bring that structural change? For structural changes, you need to have. For structural changes, you need to have a very knowledgeable society. That is, you must address the question of educating people. Not only educating but providing them skills also, so that at the end of the day they are in a position to participate in the production processes. Now, as I told you that we have devised, particularly in this budget, we have added or increased our expenditure from the last year, and this increase is about 17%, and this would be spent on education, this would be spent on health, this would be spent on women, this would be spent on children, this would be spent on the other marginalized sections of the society to enable them
Yeah.
to participate in the production processes.
But
I'll give you the two other areas. You see, if you go back to the 70s, or even if you go back to the, let me put it this way, by the beginning of the third 5-year plan, we had realized that our growth has not percolated to the targeted population. Whether that growth was small or growth was whatever growth was, by that time we had realized that growth has not percolated to the, it has not trickled down. And from then onwards, we were devising programs,
B-Sutri and other.
no matter how many programs we devised. We went on, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, and now we have reached a stage where we have provided the marginalized section, the unemployed section, with the law in the form of Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Now, it is a different matter that we will continue to behave as we were behaving earlier. Even with this law, there is a tremendous criticism which is coming on the surface that the money is not, either it is not used, or if it is used, it is not used properly, and even if it is used properly, it is not reaching the targeted population. So there is a problem in the implementation. Similarly, we had a situation on the food front. Now, on food front, look at the kind of discourses, the debates which are going on between the civil society and the government on Food Security Act. The National Council is proposing something else. The government is not in a position to take up those issues.
See, these are the trivial matters. What you said in the just right now, that in the beginning of the planning, it was thought of that the things will percolate to the target groups, but it did not percolate. So a number of policy program was started after say 70s. Yeah, after 72, with the slogan Garibi Hatao, then came B-Sutri program, etc., etc. But when at the time came to 91, again that same thought process that the development will percolate to the target group, and the globalization was opened. This, and after 15 years in 2005, you say Prime Minister said no, let us again go with the policies and program which directly engage the masses, like Narega, then it comes to Manrega. So this sort of the changing the, or you can shifting the policy so frequently, still confused where to go. How as an economist do you evaluate, assess and foresee in the future of it?
Now, I'll answer this question. You see, as I told you, that any policy, whether it is a fiscal policy or it is a monetary policy, these policies are designed to achieve the overall objective of a macroeconomic policy. Okay? Now, having said that, I'll now request you to please keep that in focus before I and try to locate the answer which I am trying to give you on this question in that framework. 1991, when we adopted the economic reform idea, that was the time when USSR had already disintegrated. The whole world had shifted from bipolar world to a unipolar world. Country after country in the world, they were subscribing to the market determined, driven economic growth. That was the time when this country had ran into a very severe crisis on balance of payment front. We did not have money to cope up with more than week or 10 days imports. We were in a very tight situation. We were very in a tight situation. Now, in that tight situation, your first objective should be, and the first objective of any government, whether this government or the government should have been headed by somebody else, it's a different matter. But the basic objective at that point of time should have been to get out of this problem.
Yeah, you are making analysis of the diagnosis. Why we came to a situation like that? Tight situation happened as of what? What was the reason? What amounted to it?
This is a question on which I can enter into debate, because this is a question which will take, we will not be in a position to settle this problem within the confines of 2 to 3, the time which you have given to me. During this given time, let me answer the basic question which you have raised, that today the same man is saying that percolation automatic is not, but this same man in 1991 did not say it in so many words. That is your question.
Right.
In 1991, we Indians were not very much concerned with whether it is percolating or it is not percolating. At that point of time, we were more concerned about to save our credibility in the community of the world nations of the world, so that we are out of the balance of payment crisis. We are out of the balance of payment crisis. So it was there that we adopted the policy of what we call privatization and liberalization. Okay. It is not that the current Prime Minister did not know that the growth will not percolate. The reason is that his master, Sukhomo Chakrabarti, had said it in so many words in his 4 or 5 lectures, which is contained in his small book, in which he had accepted that by this time we had accepted that this will not percolate. This will not percolate, because at that point of time when the developmental planning was initiated, our idea was, you see, the situation at that point of time was somewhat different. And any policy, no matter what policy you have, the policy are always designed keeping in view the prevailing situation in the country. And today, since we are globalized, we have to take into account the situation which is prevailing in the global level also. So today, as soon as we realized, it is not that we realized now, we only said it now. Let me put it this way. It's not that he was not aware of it, he knew it. He did not say it then, he is saying it now. But this is a fact, that growth automatically by all itself will not percolate all by itself. Had it been the case, if you look into the philosophical basis of the NREGA Act, the philosophical base of NREGA Act was precisely this, that it will not reach automatically. It has to be made to reach there. That is the design.
So we can frame this like this way: we have economists who can foresee the challenges, who can foresee what is going to happen 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. But the situation which emerges, which demands a different kind of arrangement, a different kind of tackling. Is this what we can say? And if so, why not be prepare a kind of mechanism which will give a kind of mechanism that we can settle down with this setback? Because leaving all the things in 21st century on the situation will not be good, I think.
You see the
Like during your lecture, you cited the example of Japan. So that it's not a total, we can say that it was a climatic factor, but also there was a non-preparedness of the government, non-preparedness on which had caused.
I'll tell you. Please look into these questions a little more carefully. I was making a reference to Japan to bring home the fact that we plan for a stable economic system and gear our all economic policies, whether they are budgetary policies or they are monetary policies, geared towards achieving that stable system. Now, this stable system we have projected and we are trying to move towards the implementation of that. But we do not know. There are external factors. You see, I'll give you an example. The example, take it like this. In sciences, we conduct experiment in a laboratory, which is a experiment conducted under controlled conditions. Economics is a behavioral science. You cannot conduct experiments in the four walls of the laboratory. It is conditioned by certain external factors also. Now, external factors are generally unleashed by either the nature in the form of floods, in the form of droughts, in the form of earthquakes, in the form of any other natural phenomenon. Then there are factors which are man-made. The man-made factors are war. Now, if in between war takes place, your entire allocation will shift towards defense. You will not care for this, you will not care for this, you will only care for the security of the nation. So, I was using Japan as an example to bring home the fact that there are macroeconomic objectives, yes. There are policy parameters in the form of fiscal policy, in the form of monetary policy. You are using them to attain those, but in between anything can happen. So therefore, stability is not necessary, and history is witness to this. History is witness to this. Okay, there was a period of very low rates of inflation, low rates of unemployment, high rates of growth, and suddenly you discovered. Now that sudden when you discovered, that was guided by the external forces, oil price hike of the early 70s, then late 70s. Then look at the situation which was taking place, obtaining in the world scenario. So, you see these situations which are not in your reach, in your control, they certainly play havoc.
Okay.
Are we through or?
Yeah. So, well, friends, This was a really lively lecture, and Dr. Sharma has not only explained the nuances of making of budget, but also suggested the caution which one should take, and also what are the how priority shifts from time at certain point of time, and that becomes more important for any economics or for any decision makers. And with this word, I would like to conclude the lecture. I thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on your behalf, I thank Dr. S.C. Sharma for giving such an insightful lecture. Thank you very much.